So what we found is that millionaires that do not experience happiness, or the ones who we say fall on the dark side of being a millionaire, they tend to struggle with relationships. And we're using relationships in like the big overarching sense. This may be intimate relationships, coworker relationships, friendships, family relationships. Relationships are not something those that have achieved a certain level of success and are unhappy have figured out how to master.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of the things I thought was interesting when we started researching the show is that being wealthy and successful can be isolating.
Mm-hmm.
I know, look, I already gave one anecdotal. It's not scientific, but, builder who built my house called me, had a new neighborhood. We went and looked at it, and we found out none of the neighbors talking that, and it's because they live on bigger tracts of property.
Mm-hmm.
It was 3-acre minimum property versus ours. We're like all around half an acre.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't help but walk outside to get your mail and talk
And
to
you see
2
your
or 3
neighbor,
neighbors.
yeah.
And that's actually created a sense of community. Whereas I know in these nicer communities, I don't know if it's people just don't even want to know their neighbors, but it just is a natural thing. I think they're more isolated. You're like, oh, that's a horrible, that's first world problems.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a reality. If you're lonely and isolated, I think we are herd animals. Humans like to be around other humans. I know there's going to be a group of you. I have some that are living in my household that are introverts, but still at some point we want to be loved. We want to feel connected, have a sense of community. And in a lot of ways, success can make you isolated.
Yeah, there's an interesting study done by Vox that found that low-income Americans spend more time with people overall and spend more time with family, 6 extra days per year, and neighbors 4 more days per year than high-income Americans. So for something happens as our socioeconomic status increases, as our income increases, as our wealth increases, we actually find ourselves spending less time with people. When I think about those 2 stats, less time with family, the people that we love, and less time with friends, the neighbors, the people that we love. So it's something we ought to be mindful of. Are we becoming all consumed in our pursuit of wealth, in our pursuit of success, in our pursuit of making more money, having more money, that we're losing sight of the reason why we're doing that, so that we can do life with the people around us? It's something to be aware of and not allow to be something that strains your relationships.
Well, I just got back from doing spring training with my high school buddies.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen these guys in years. And then you get together and it's like old times because you don't have any of the pretenses. And I think sometimes wealthy people struggle because they also wonder what are people's motivations, what is going on. But it's led to, if you look at the data points, this is always sad to me too, because I take entrepreneurs, because as we all know, that's a successful group of the population. They're 2 times more likely to be depressed. They're 3 times the general population to be addicted to some type of substance. It's so sad to me because this is supposed to be, you're supposed to be living your best life, having the best relationships. And it seems like this shows me money, wealth, success does not necessarily correlate to fulfillment and happiness. You gotta have some purpose. You gotta actually put a plan to it.
And I think here's how you can do this better, how I can think about this. Number 1, when it comes to relationships, make time for those that you love. Now, I'll be honest, we have so much exciting stuff going on here at the firm and so much exciting stuff going on here with the show. And I'm just naturally driven. I just enjoy work. I love doing it. I could very easily work 18 hours a day and I would not have any problem with that at all. But I recognize if I did that, I wouldn't be a great husband and I wouldn't be a great father and I wouldn't be a great friend and I wouldn't be involved in my community. So I have to purposely and specifically say, okay, at this time every day, I'm gonna stop working. I'm gonna go home. This is family time. You have been able to implement some sort of systems or traits that have allowed you to become successful and build wealth as you get to millionaire status. So you've shown that you have an affinity for systems and achieving goals. I'm just arguing that one of the goals that you ought to have if you are motivated, if you are driven is, I'm gonna make a goal to purposely spend time with folks that I love, folks that I care about, folks that I want to be around.
I have an experience here that I think will be somewhat well received because it really will give context to some things. Is that because this is the part about wealth and relationships. When I was in middle school, my father lost his job. Now, this is the job that was paying well for my family, where we were very comfortably in the middle class, had a company car. Had lots of benefits. I remember we used to go do vacation in Augusta, Georgia, because my dad was a sales manager for both the Atlanta and the Augusta, Georgia, and they stayed at the Holiday Inn. They had cable TV. We didn't have cable TV at the house.
That's how you know it's a nice vacation.
And it had a swimming pool in the backyard. It was high time living. That's why I saw Clash of the Titans at least 26 times on the same trip, because that's how HBO worked back then. But then my dad lost his job in middle school. When I was going 7th and 8th grade, the company just completely got out of the division. And he lost the company car. It was the hardest time economically for my family. My mom will still talk about that. It was such a struggle for them. That's why, when I tell the funny stories of recycling soap, where my parents' vacations for that 2 years was going on timeshare presentations so we could get free vacations and things like that. But here's the cut through all the noise of my parents' stress, the anxiety of not having enough money. My dad driving around jalopy that he was keeping running, they bought for less than $1,000. Was that when I look back on my childhood, and this is really important because my dad has been gone since I was in my mid-20s. He passed away. Is that the best time of my childhood was actually when my parents were the poorest. You know why? Dad was there.
Because you were together.
And that's the thing that I think we have to clear the air on, is saying that, look, just like time in the market is important, you got to have that time component to get the compounding growth and everything. Time with loved ones is what is going to create the depth, the relationship, the memories. Because when you lose your father in your mid-20s, you know what helps get you through it? Having all those memories and having those periods. But I've always really internalized the poorest time for my parents was the happiest time for me as a kid. And it probably goes for a lot of kids out there, that they're not paying attention to what cars the parents drive, the houses they live in. It's really how loved they feel, the sense of community, and then how healthy the relationship is in that house.
I love it. Another thing that you can do that's in that same vein is figure out how to maintain a community. Now, one thing I love, and someone just said this in the chat, and I think it's so great. We have a community here. Every Tuesday at 10 a.m., you guys come and hang out with us and you interact. And what I think is awesome is if you bought one of our courses or use one of our tools, we have a private financial mutant group. And I love seeing you guys interact on there. Hey, I've got this problem. I've got this issue. I've got this question. I'd love for you guys to weigh in. And there is a sense of community, even though it's virtual, even though it's not like next door neighbors talking. I think it is awesome. If you can find ways to do that, I think you'll be amazed at how much sweeter life can be. You said something that I think is so awesome, Brian. You went to spring training with your group of buddies from high school. I mean, high school was a long time ago for you. And yet, you've been able to maintain that. I've got the same thing. I've got 3 best friends in the whole world. We all went to school together, and we still do a trip together every year. If you can find ways to maintain those communities in your life, it will help recenter you on those things that really matter and not get lost in the hustle and bustle of trying to chase wealth, trying to chase money.
We talked about, and I've talked, we've both bragged about that. Our poor wives and are the spouses that have to probably put up with more than anybody else, because we're the very unique characters to live with. I do think it's important to, if you want to do it well, choose your partner wisely. This is somebody you're going to spend a lot of time with. You're going to make a lot of financial decisions. Whatever mistakes or struggles they have will also become part of your struggles. So just have good communication. Make sure you have those discussions before you start talking about engagement. Do all the heavy lifting. Don't let it just be, does that person make my heart full, go flippity flop, and and other exciting things that happen when you're in that early part of a relationship. Actually think about what does long-term success look like, and choose your partner wisely.
Yeah, I want to be very clear, because if you're seeing the slide right now, it actually says choose your partners wisely. I was like, why on earth do we put that up there? With the people with whom you interact, it means even if you go, so you talked about the intimate, the marital relationship, the spousal relationship, right? It's also, hey, if you're going to go into business with someone, make sure that you're choosing your partner wisely. If you're going to commit to something long-term with another human being, make sure that you're choosing that wisely, because a lot of your happiness and a lot of your fulfillment will be tied up in how well you get along with that person. Brian, it's been great doing this with you for as many years as we've been doing it. There's a bunch of other knuckleheads in my life who would have driven each other crazy by now, but for some reason, this thing works. So if you can make those decisions right on the front end and not hastily rush into it, not make a flippity-floppity decision like Brian said, then you're going to set yourself up for success over the long term.
I want to close it out with something I couldn't help myself. This got a collective groan from the content team when I brought it up. I was like, cue up the Jimmy John sign, because Bo and I were in McDonough, Georgia, and he was so excited they got a Jimmy John. And I remember the first time I went to the bathroom at Jimmy John, and I found this, but it encapsulates perfectly a good closing. It
does.
Here.
It's great.
Is that because I have throughout this episode, because we're talking about the dark side of being a millionaire and how empty wealth can be if you just don't understand your why and your purpose. And there's this sign that's in a lot of Jimmy John's, the sandwich shop, of course. It's all across the country. How much is enough? And I think the content team was worried I was going to read this whole thing. I'm not.
I want to be clear. We're still nervous it's going to happen. We're
I'm
all
not
kind of
going to
expecting
read it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to set it up, and then I'm going to read 2 lines.
Okay.
First of all, there's a wealthy investment banker, American, because we're talking about the dark side of being an American millionaire if you're not careful. He goes down to Mexico, and he's just going on a fishing thing. Well, as he's at the dock, he sees this fisherman pull up, and he has 2 huge tuna. And he's like, wow, those are some beautiful fish. How long did it take for you to do that? And the fisherman's like, not too long. He goes, and of course, the American super successful guy is like, why didn't you get more? If it didn't take you long, you should go get fish even more, fill up the entire boat. And he goes, so since it didn't take you long, what do you do with your time? This is what the American asked the fisherman. What do you do with your time? And here it is. I'm going to read this. This is the first one. The Mexican fisherman said, I sleep late, fish a little, play with my children, take a siesta with my wife, Maria, stroll into the village each evening where I sip wine and play guitar with my amigos. I have a full and busy life. So, of course, the American's like, yeah, but let me tell you, you have so much capacity. You have so much ability to fish for more, get more beautiful tuna in there. Why don't you, not only you could fish, you could hire a whole fleet of fishermen to work underneath you, and you could build up all this wealth and success.
Build and
to
scale.
The point. And the fisherman was like, well, why would I want to do that? He's like, so you could be wealthy. And he's like, well, how long would that take? The fisherman was like curious. He's like, how long would that take? Like 15 to 20 years. And then the fisherman asked the question that I think gives so much purpose. He goes, okay, so if I build up all this money, I take the 15 to 20 years, what's the why? Why would I do all this? And then the investment banker, the American millionaire, dark side of this, looks at him and goes, well, so the American said, then you'd retire, move to a small coastal fishing village where you would sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take the siesta with your wife, stroll to the village in the evening, sip wine, and play your guitar with your amigos. There is so much, and this goes back full circle, very Seinfeld-esque, back to my childhood. Happiest time of my life as a kid was when my dad and my mom were broke as a joke because my dad had lost his job. Kids don't pay attention to that stuff. They know how much love is in the house, not how much money. Now, definitely money helps. Don't mishear me on that. But pay attention to the people you love. Pay attention, be purposeful about every second you're on this planet, and just make it happen. Try to make sure you understand what does wealth do for you, what does it not do, and what is actually the why of your life, so you can all bring it together and have that full abundance that we want to create for you.